Sipa and Komat, the Kokopa creator gods. Uncle Artis is our storyteller tonight, and he has a collection of Kokopa legends. These include stories of Sipa, the Kokopa creator god. Unlike native cultures in the rest of North America, the Kokopa and other Sonoran tribes of southeast California and southwestern Arizona did not consider their creator to be a benevolent spirit or even a friend to humankind. Sipa was capricious and deceitful and was eventually slain by his own creations after introducing death to the world. Another very important character is Coyote. Coyote is the trickster figure of Kokopa legends. He is clever but reckless, and constantly getting himself and those around him into trouble with his irresponsible and socially inappropriate behavior. In some Kokopa stories, Coyote is generally a likable character who is merely greedy and impulsive. In others, he commits serious crimes such as cannibalism and abuse of women. Coyote stories are often humorous in nature, but they can also be cautionary tales about the consequences of bad behavior and the dangers of interacting with reckless and immoral people. Let's begin with Sipa and Komat creating the world as we know it now. In the beginning, all the earth was covered with water, which meant Sipa and Komat, the creator gods, were underwater and in the ground, living the way a child lives in its mother. They began talking about coming out, so Komat smoked a cigarette to get extra strength, and, because he was the older, he pushed Sipa out ahead of him. Tobacco was an important part of their culture in this part of the world. Tough start in this neighborhood. Cheesy whispered to you. When they reached the outside world, Komat became the younger and Sipa became the older, because Sipa came out first. These two creator gods were twins, or as they are called in the language, Hawak. On their way up through the water, Komat asked his brother how he did it, and Sipa replied that he opened his eyes. When the older brother opened his eyes in the water, he was blinded. When they came out, there was no ground, so they had the ants help them out. Flying ants, little red ants, and big red ants all dug out hills of earth to make the ocean go down and to supply Sipa and Komat with the land they needed to rest on. Once the ground became dry in spots, Sipa and Komat started making men. Sipa and Komat made all kinds of human men in the form of Indians, Mexicans, Chinese, Americans, and so on. Komat, the blind twin, had to urinate, so he got up and walked into the bushes. While he was gone, Sipa changed the people he had made for the ones Komat had made, because they were better. When Komat returned, he felt of the men and knew he had not made them, because they were deformed and badly made. He said nothing and went ahead making more. Weak eyes, weak bladder, he had to go to the bushes to urinate again, and while he was gone, Sipa changed his fox, a cross fox, for Komat's kit fox. When Komat came back, he knew that the animals had been changed because he could hear his fox beating his tail against the ground. He could also tell the difference in the fur of the animal he had. Komat then called his fox by name. When his fox heard this, he scratched and tried to get away. Komat kept on working on his men all this time. After they had made all of the men they were going to make, they decided that they were ready for eyes. Sipa suggested that they be put in each of the 10 toes. Komat said that would not do because they would get hurt, and the men wouldn't be unable to see when they walked in water or in mud or dust. The best place for eyes is in the head, Komat said, and Sipa finally agreed, so now all men have 2 eyes in their heads, well above the ground, and if one gets hurt the other can be used. Sipa made a bow and arrow, and when this was finished, he shot the arrow into the air and it came down and hit Komat. Cheesy whispered, "Tough neighborhood." Komat asked him why he shot the arrow that way, and explained to him that he should only use the bow and arrow to kill animals. Komat was sitting down at the time, and the arrow came from behind and hit him in the back. The wound was not serious. Everything was dark, so Sipa attempted to make a sun. He made a very small one, and the light was no better than the moon. Komat didn't like that, so he started making a sun by easy stages. When he finished, he threw the sun into the east, and it traveled east to west so that the people could know when to get up, when to work, and when to go to sleep. Sipa was going to throw his sun away, but Komat said, "No, let it stay. It will be the moon. The people can then tell the seasons, the months, and the days by the moon." When these things were finished, Sipa again changed his people for the ones made by Komat. When Komat discovered this substitution, he was very mad this time. He reached up and broke the skies and then went down into the earth, leaving a hole. Sipa reached up and held the skies and jumped over the hole with his feet because smoke, air, electricity, and other things that cause death were coming up. Some of this escaped onto the earth through Sipa's toes, which caused sicknesses to be introduced. After the sky was fixed and the ground covered, Sipa sat down and made some more people and a house for them to live in. The house was turned to striped stone. It is on a mountain about 30 miles east of Tucson. The Maricopa know where this place is. Coyote is the trickster figure of Kokopa legends. He is clever but reckless and is constantly getting himself and the people around him into trouble with his irresponsible and socially inappropriate behavior. Coyote and Snake. Coyote took his little sister Snake and threw her around. Snake complained to Sipa. Sipa took whiskers from his chin and thorns from a bush and put them in Snake's mouth. He blew tobacco smoke into her mouth and put ashes on her face and told her if the coyote threw her around to bite him. She did, and Coyote died. The people didn't know how to cry for Coyote, so Locust taught them how to cry. 3 birds directed the cremation. The 2 frog sisters of Coyote mourned and decided to seek revenge on Sipa for putting teeth in Snake's mouth. The 2 frog sisters caught Sipa's excrement when he defecated, and this caused Sipa to become ill. Sipa vomited white, yellow, red and black. These became food plants for the people. Coyote died, and the 3 birds took an ember from Coyote's cremation and hid it in the ground. Coyote had a brother who wanted to eat Sipa's body, so the birds sent him to the sun to get fire for the cremation. While he was away, Quail, who was hiding the ember, lit the funeral pyre. The old woman who was taking care of the sun asked Coyote what he wanted the fire for. He told her, and she said the pyre was nearly burned down. Coyote came bounding back, and the people surrounded the pyre to guard it from him. Coyote begged to be let in, finally jumping over Badger and Skunk. Coyote ran away with the heart, and the non-human persons tried to catch him. The people were forgetting all the things that Sipa had taught them. The 3 birds sent White Roadrunner to find Sipa, who was walking toward heaven. He told him what was going on. Sipa said he couldn't come back. Roadrunner came back and told everyone what had happened. Eagle, Hummingbird, and Coyote stood on top of a mountain after the world was created. Water rose up toward their feet. Eagle carried the other 2 away to a higher mountain until the water went down. Coyote went out to see if the world was dry. He called back that the world was now dry. Hummingbird checked at the river and found a beautiful girl. Eagle told him she was Coyote's wife so the people could be raised again. The girl and Coyote married, and the children became the forefathers of the different Indian tribes. Coyote gave people boss and arrows to hunt rabbits. He told them to eat acorn mush and bread and seafoods. Coyote thought he was smarter than everyone, but Hummingbird was smarter. Coyote was jealous of him because of that, so he smashed Hummingbird, but the bird came back to life. Coyote wondered how to kill Hummingbird. Some told him to eat him. He did, but Hummingbird scratched his inside, so he had to let him out. Coyote told his wife about the animals in the ocean, but he did not tell her about a frightful one. She came to the beach, and the animal frightened her so much she fell over dead. Coyote carried her on his back and laid her by a fire and sang and danced 3 times. She came back to life. Coyote did things that were stingy and mean. He caught salmon and put them in the fire, but told his children there was no salmon. He'd reach in and pull out a piece of it. His children thought he was eating fire. They wanted to also, but Coyote told them not to, for they would be burned. Coyote is often considered a hero, and there are many stories of his tricks and foolish ways, but Coyote always has a wingman. Coyote is often accompanied by Fox, who tends to help Coyote when his curiosity and mischievous ways land him in troublesome situations. Coyote and Golden Eagle. Coyote was watching Eagle one day. He saw Eagle soaring on updrafts near a high cliff. Eagle would swoop down, scream, and ride the drafts back up, really enjoying himself. Coyote watched and watched. Then he said to himself, "Those are my ways." In this frame of mind, he climbed all the way up the cliff, all the while watching Eagle, and thinking to himself, "Those are my ways." It was hard work, but he was determined to get to the top. Finally, after climbing all day, he got to the top of the cliff. He walked to the edge and jumped off, intending to catch an updraft and soar. With his skinny arms and legs, however, he just plummeted down. He tried frantically to flap his arms and twirl his tail, but nothing helped him fly. He continued to plummet down the sheer cliff face. He became so afraid that he screamed and pooped all the way to the bottom, where he was splattered to pieces. A long white streak from the top to the bottom remains on that cliff to remind us of Coyote's journey. Sometime later, Coyote's brother, Fox, came along. Fox had heard that Coyote's foolishness had caused his death again. Fox carefully gathered up all the bits and pieces of Coyote that he could find, a few hairs, a tooth, a piece of bone, and so on. When Fox was satisfied that he had all the bits it was possible to find, he breathed into the assemblage, and then stepped over it 4 times. The pile then transformed itself into Coyote. Coyote sat up, rubbed his eyes, and chastised Fox for waking him up. Coyote said to Fox, "I must have dozed off for a few minutes, and then you're waking me up." Fox just shook his head, as Coyote carried on his way as if nothing had happened. Coyote was ready for more mischief.